Okay. So, taking care of business. And if you're part of the inner circle, Elvis would give you a pin that said taking care of business if you're a man. If you're a woman, it would be TLC, meaning tender, loving care. And, but I read a story not too long ago somewhere online in Elvis world. And that's a multifarious universe unto itself right there, Elvis world is. That there was a secret second meaning to the TCB, and it actually stood for an inner secret society that Elvis belonged to, namely Templar Christian Brotherhood, which is a brother sisterhood, as the story goes, of which Elvis Presley was a conscious member and leader, dedicated essentially to the Templar Code, to the upliftment of humanity, to the defense of those who cannot defend themselves, and opposing deliberate evil in the world. Now, I like that story very much. I don't know if it's true, but I do know that Elvis was initiated into a secret society of that kind. Do you want to tell the story of the ring in this regard, or is that? I mean, it's in your book.
Yeah,
let me just let everybody know, because we'll
right,
get right into this, that Reverend Maya has written a remarkable, beautiful book on the soul of Elvis Presley, called Blue Star Love.
Spiritual life of
Right, from an amazing heart of grace.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I never really wanted that title. I mean, that subtitle, but I couldn't have Elvis's name in it, so I sort of just chalked it out of my mind.
Right. Okay. Well, let me. I don't know if we have time to go into the full story of your experiences with Elvis, but Maya attended many concerts and developed a special connection with Elvis from the stage. She was able to give him some of her spiritual writings, and she later learned these were very important to him. Of the 1,000 books on metaphysics he ever read, towards the end of his life, he told a friend, these 22 books are the most important books I ever read. And Maya's book, Red Tree, A Secret History of Lemuria and Atlantis, was one of the books that Elvis most treasured. Yeah. And so they had a strong psychic connection, and they communicated telepathically. She had that proven to her from the stage. And so this wonderful book was written based on transcripts of, based in large part on Maya's own work and insights from the Thothip material and her own experiences, but also based very much on recordings of private conversations that Elvis had with Wanda June Hill, who was a close friend of his, discussing these topics that he really couldn't talk about with anybody else, about his spiritual seeking and his spiritual experiences, his memory of past lives, his interest in meditation, and his belief that he was, in fact, his soul origin was the blue star Rigel in the constellation Orion. And so when we're talking about souls who have, come into the planet for a special purpose, and we refer to our friend from the blue star, we're talking about Mr. Presley. So did you want to expand on that, Maya?
Yeah. For one thing, I received from Thoth about Elvis's soul having come from the blue star Rigel before I had any idea that he had actually said that twice to his friend Wanda. And once he said it on tape, and I do have a copy of that tape. But, I didn't know that. And he said that before I even knew about the blue star. It was back in the 60s, and I didn't know about it until the 70s. So when we compared notes, Wanda and I, when she heard me say what I said, she would grab the tapes. Oh my gosh, here it is. So that was the beginning of our communication in a very deep way. And that's when she asked me to write the book. I mean, she knew I was wanting to write a book on Elvis, but she said, you're the one that should take these transcripts of these recordings about Elvis talking about his spiritual life and beliefs, which he knew she was recording, and to do something with it. So that's how that came about. And I'd been to 37 of Elvis's concerts, beginning in '69 and ending, of course. The last one actually I saw was in '75, and he passed in '77, if you want to call it past. Anyway, so I had a rich history with him and communicating with him from the stage and all of this. But when I read Wanda's book that she had written, I was just, I loved it. So I knew it was true and it was beautiful. So that's when I contacted her. But we didn't, have a real friendship and communication until she heard what I had to say about the Blue Star. And that's what sealed it right there.
Right. So that ties in a lot of ways to the work we're doing here, in terms of what Maya shares in the book, what Elvis believed about himself and what he was trying to accomplish as a soul in this life, and what he felt he did not achieve that he was meant to. And maybe you'd want to tell the story of the ring.
Oh, yes, the ring. Well, he was a longtime member and real devotee of Yogananda in Self-Realization Fellowship, and a good friend of Dayamata, who was then the head of the fellowship that had been turned to her from Yogananda himself. He had asked, she was in line for that from him. And so he was a good friend of hers, and he spent a lot of time up there. And she even let him go to where the monks stayed, a very special place that not a lot of people got to go. So he was already very much on the path. And he had over 1,000 books in his library that were on spiritual metaphysical topics. And he read them. He underlined them. He wrote in the margins, and all of that. And when you go to Graceland, you can see them. Actually, I have a few that he gave Wanda, and Wanda gave to me. But then he came across this other order, not that he was deviating from Yogananda, but, to just add it to his understanding and picture. He joined an order of the order of Melchizedek. Well, there's got to be a zillion orders of Melchizedek out there. So I don't know which one this was, but I do know that Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., if anybody remembers that actor, was a member of it too, because he told Wanda that he was. I guess maybe they were friends. I don't know. Anyway, so he was a member of this other order as well. And the scarves he wore, where he, first of all, he wore the scars because he knew the monks or whatever, the master monks, whatever, they gave scars. They blessed them and gave them to people. Well, he wanted to do that too. Not that he thought he was some highfalutin monk or anything, but he just, it appealed to his heart. And if the girls wanted something, well, why not bless these scars in secret, not tell them? But Charlie told me this, his sidekick that I talked to personally on the phone after Elvis's death. Charlie told me with his own words that Elvis would bless these scars before the show, give them to Charlie so nobody else touched them. And then Charlie would give him each scarf that he wore a little while. And, after he'd worn it a while, he would give it to a girl. So the girls thought, oh, I'm getting a scarf from Elvis. And actually, they were getting a blessed scarf from Elvis. And this was his, one of the many ways he worked to try to bring to be a spiritual channel, if you will, for the people that loved him and wanted to touch him and be near him. It's like, okay, this is the life that I've been given. And when he went to a Dayamata and said, why did God make me Elvis Presley? And he never told Charlie the answer to that. What she told him back, but when he wanted to get Kriya Yoga, she said, no, you can't do that, Elvis, because you've got to be Elvis. You've got to be Elvis Presley. You can't go off into, you want to become a monk? And she said, no, you can't do that. You got to be Elvis Presley. So he thought, okay, I've got to be Elvis Presley. So how can I use this medium to reach people spiritually? It was a very, very difficult, it was heartrending for him, as you would hear on the tapes. He says, it's just driving me crazy. It's driving me crazy. He said, I have this hunger. So one of the things he did was bless these scars, The girls wanted the scarves. Okay, I'll bless them, and then I'll give it to them. So back to the ring, because the scars play into this. So then when he became a member of the Melchizedek order, they wore these scarves. I don't know they wore them everywhere all the time, but part of it, but it wasn't just around, if you'll notice, if you watch it all, in 1972, Elvis started wearing his scarves differently, not on stage because he had to be able to take them off easily, but off stage he had it sort of like a napkin, and it went over the shoulders, and it had a little, thingy-majiggy that tied it right here. So you had this napkin of a scarf. And the reason it changed like that, so Wanda told me, was because of this Melchizedek order. That's the way they wore their scarves. Maybe it was in ceremony or something. And so anyway, the head of this order, the very head of it at the time, I don't know who he was or what, gave Elvis a ring. And this ring was very old and very interesting looking. It was a heavy man's ring, and like a seal or something on it. There's a picture in my book. And he said, this is a very, very special ring, and it's very old, and I feel you should have it, Elvis. And I know that, as you evolve in your spirituality even more and more, this ring will be, very special to you. Well, not long after that, I mean, maybe a year or so, but maybe longer, but Elvis got to the point where he was having so much problems in his life, extreme bad health, from various things that in his life that had caused bad health, not drugs at first. Drugs came, medical drugs came when he was in such horrible pain, and these doctors were giving him stuff indiscriminately, just totally indiscriminately. He had 2 different doctors that didn't know each other that were giving him different things. And my friend Linda, who was the photo girl in Vegas, who knew him as well, I had other sources besides Wanda, was telling me, she said, this is insane. He's got this Arabian doctor or Middle Eastern doctor in Vegas, and he's got Dr. Nick back in Memphis, and Dr. Nick traveled with him too, but somehow for a while he wasn't. So they were giving him, conflicting medication. Anyway, he had that going on. He was very, very ill. And he also had other situations in his life that were really not of his making. Of course, everyone has their karma. I understand that. So I'm not saying he was innocent totally, but he was a famous person, and he was being taken advantage of by many people very close to him. And this hurt his heart because he was such a loving person. And then when certain people in his experience that were close to him said, what this order you belong to? You can't even, and you think you're going to help people spiritually? How can you help people spiritually? You can't even help yourself. He was getting this a lot. And he finally just said to Wanda, he said, I felt I don't deserve this anymore. I'm going to draw, he didn't quit the Yogananda order, but he did quit the Melchizedek one. He said, because I can't live up to what they want from me, and I'm just not deserving. So he went to the head of the place, and he took the ring off, and he said, here, I don't deserve this ring. I want you to take it back because I'm just not, I'm not living up to it, and I just want you to take it back. And he said, no, Elvis, no. This ring is yours. So Elvis took it back. Now, I interpret that to mean that the original owner of the ring had been an incarnation of Elvis. Now, that's my interpretation, mine and Thos. But the man just simply said, this ring is yours. So Elvis kept it, but he wouldn't wear it anymore. And at the very last one, he saw Wanda the last time, which was just months before his death. They were alone together. He'd come to do an interview she was going to interview him on tape for a young man who was going to college. He had all these phone friends, okay, and they had family, and they had kids, and they had this and that. And this young man was part of this family, and he was doing his thesis on Elvis. And he asked Wanda if she would ask him if he would do a little some tapes that give him some, some feedback. I don't think he was going to use them publicly. I'm not sure if he did or not, but he wanted, this. And Elvis said yes. Here he was, this sick person with all these problems and everything, but he met Wanda in a Memphis motel to be able to do this. He didn't want to be at home with all those prying eyes. So he had special people, special friends that took him there. So they did this interview there, just across the table from one another. And when it was through and he got up to leave, he gave her this big hug. She said it just brought tears to her eyes. She felt he was saying goodbye, like she'd never see him again. And he took the ring off and just put it, he was wearing it at that time, and just put it right in her hand like that. She didn't know what to put in her hand. He just went like that and put it in her hand. And when he left, she opened her hand and it was that ring. And of course, she knew what the ring was. Oh, I have to say he did tell her, because he put it in her hand and he said, I'm sorry, he did say, he said, I want you to have this because it's not valuable monetarily. And when I'm gone, they're going to go through my things and they're going to decide that this ring isn't worth anything and they're just going to throw it away. So I want you to have it. So that's how she got the ring.
So the rest of the story I'm receiving, you don't particularly want to cover right this second?
What's the rest of the story?
Well, what became of the ring?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I don't feel that it's appropriate.
Okay, I understand.
But it's in good hands.
Yes, we'll just let everybody know that we know what happened to it and it's in good hands. Shall we leave it at that?
That's right. Yes.
Right.
Exactly. What I really am hoping we'll do, Michael, another show, dedicate the whole show to this topic, because it's very rich and it goes on, and there's a lot of things I think people would like to hear. So we're just skimming.
And you know what? I will just mention in passing. Of course, we've shared it elsewhere that there is a documentary in the works of Maya's book, and I can just share with everybody that it's going well, and we look forward some months down the road to being able to share it with you. So as I'm looking at where we are time-wise, it's 5 o'clock. Yeah, we probably need to be wrapping up. And yes, there is incredibly rich material that we've only touched on. And I think this Templar thread, it touches on Elvis, it touches on the Blue Star, it touches on the work we're doing with sacred science, and it touches on what we're all going through with the lockdown, the agendas behind it, upholding divine justice. And so this feels like a thread. I mean, there's a reason that the channel here is called Blue Star Rising, the Templar Awakening. So the Holy Grail, the nature of this valley that we're sitting in as we share this interview with you, there is many a rich story waiting to be told about the high energetics of this valley and how we have been blessed to be able to learn how to work with them. So thank you, Maya, for again, sharing all your beautiful receivings with us, and we'll say hello to Nemo, who's directly behind your right shoulder, right?
Yes, it's kind of hard to see because he blends in.
Right, he blends. There he is. What a cute! He blends in with the fireplace.
There we go.
Right, he's your secret blessing there. All right, thanks everybody. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.